Hello everybody, welcome to Mantle Farm here on YouTube, and in this video we join Mike Cullen to discuss the various methods of applying oxalic acid to treat varroa in your hives and why he's chosen a particular method of application.
I'm Mike Cullen, Master Beekeeper, and I'm here with Josh this morning to just have a casual chat about what I'm actually doing this year, just before Christmas, with my own bees, and I hope that will help you understand what you need to be doing with your own bees if you just started. I normally help out with courses at Mantle Farm and occasionally with the association directly in the Hastings and Rother area. This time of year, in fact today, I intend to do the third and final oxalic acid vaping of my colonies, and I've chosen through many years of trial and error and practice that to focus on vaping my colonies, and I have a favoured method of doing that, which I will just show you. I'll excuse my garage, which doubles as my honey super storage and what have you area. This is what's known as an insect fogger. I've been using this for the last four and a half years. I saw it demonstrated by some American beekeepers some years ago, and I thought, wow, that speeds the whole method up and gives me a whole level of control that I didn't have before, because every year up until then I'd either use the oxalic acid trickle treatment, which entailed mixing up a mixture of an oxalic acid mixture with water and sugar syrup and applying it through the seams of bees with a rather large syringe.
Gosh, that is a big syringe.
Well, it should hold 100 mils. Some of them do anyway. This one holds 60 mils of the fluid. And the idea was that you would open up your hive and disturb the bees, may I say. This is an old steamed out commercial brood box. Look down into the seams of bees that are supposedly clustered at this time of year. Identify which seams are occupied by the cluster, make a note of them, and then trickle gently about 5 to 6 mils of the oxalic acid mixture of sugar syrup and acid onto them, which then would drip down over them, cause them to preen each other, clean off mites that they encounter, and over a period of up to 4 weeks, the oxalic acid will kill the mites it touches. And it has very little effect on the bees if you do one treatment only. A second treatment is too much. The acidity that the bees encounter if you do it more than once is too much for them, and your fatality rate of bees will go up considerably. So there was a one-shot treatment. Now that was reasonably successful, and I saw the efficacy of the treatment was quite high. The varroa drop was quite considerable. However, to do it, I've had to open the hive in the middle of winter,
Yeah.
when they're quiescent and supposedly conserving energy and what have you and protecting the queen, I have to crack all of the nicely prepared propolis that they've employed to stop any drafts and secure their hive area, and really disturb them, which I didn't like doing at this time of the year. However, you know, needs must. Then one of the other things I tried in desperation to improve the efficacy of the treatment still further, one year or 2 years actually, I went through the brood nest, physically opened the brood nest on all the colonies that I had. The object being to find those frames that had capped brood. These are all empty, obviously,
yeah.
but usually you can find the remains of some capped brood somewhere on one or two of the frames. I actually went through 1 year 25 hives, and out of all 25 I found only 5 had capped brood. When I found the capped brood, the object of the exercise was to use an uncapping fork to open up and kill the brood and have the bees clear out those particular cells and any varroa mites that would be in there feeding on them and breeding. Put them back and then come along a day or so later and do the oxalic acid treatment as well. Now, that disturbed me almost as much as it did the bees. A, because for 1/5 of the number of hives that I'd already disturbed, only they had capped brood to consider still storing varroa mites in, because the oxalic acid treatment really cannot treat the varroa mites that are inside the capped brood. That's the idea of it. So if you go into winter or go through winter with some capped brood that's got breeding varroa mites in there, when they come out in the spring, they're already infested, even if you've treated them properly. So I was doubly upset with this particular method. I stopped doing that. So I didn't want to disturb them more than absolutely necessary. So I moved on to what was then quite a new treatment, which was to vaporize the oxalic acid crystals. So the oxalic acid crystals look like this. It's like caster sugar.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It has the origin of, I think it's derived from rhubarb. It's quite a toxic substance, and when one handles it, one should use either vinyl or rubber gloves, okay? And if you're going to vaporize it, one has to have a vapor standard or high particulate filtering type of mask. I use this particular model of 3M, and I have a spare new one over on my shelf there if this one starts to play up. But that is absolutely essential, because if you get oxalic acid vapor onto your lungs, it can do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
When mixing it as an acid, like for this particular treatment, when you mix up the acid, you do it in water and you add it to a sugar syrup solution, okay? It is absolutely essential that you wear goggles as well, in case it splashes up, because it would do your eyes no good at all, as well as skin. However, when you vaporize it, I've found it's not really necessary to wear the goggles, because you'll be wearing a veil, and if you're wearing the veil properly, there's no splashing involved, basically. It's just vapor. Yeah. And the vapor imparts a dust over the inside of the hive when you use it.
Okay.
So what one used to have to do was you'd take the oxalic acid crystals out, put it into the tray. That tray would then either go in through the hive entrance. In my case, that wasn't any good because I use a 9mm gap, which was a restriction. So I used to use the open mesh floor. You're not doing it, mister. to go in underneath the back of the hive.
Yeah.
You would then connect your wires to either a car battery or, in this case, a golf trolley battery.
Yep.
This would heat up and vaporise the quantity that you've put on there, and it could take anything up to 5 minutes before that vaporisation procedure has been complete.
Yeah.
And when that's in there, you need to block the entrance so that you don't lose the vapour. You want the vapour to come up through the hive right the way up to the roof.
Yeah.
Okay. So the preparation of this and the vaporisation process itself, and then the removal of it, cleaning of it after it's cooled down, doing all that before you move on to the next hive to do the same treatment, used to take anything up to 12, 15 minutes per hive.
Gosh. Yeah.
Right? Now, if you've got more than 10 hives, that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
And when you consider that most of the time you're doing this, you're out in the cold, wet or snowy conditions that your colonies are experiencing, and it's not good for you as well as not good for the bees. But it worked, and the efficacy of this was equally as high, if not better, than the trickle treatment. And the big plus that this had that the trickle treatment didn't was that I didn't have to open the hive.
Yeah.
Okay? So, the dangers of this, in addition to the health and safety dangers of having to wear a mask, having to wear gloves, and under some circumstances wearing goggles, this gets almost red hot and will burn anything it touches. Now, I use lino inserts.
Yeah.
So to collect so that I can view and remove debris that comes down through the open mesh floor. This would go up in flames dead easy if you let this go on. So I'd have to take that out first, put that in, block it with some form of foam, which I'm sure many people are familiar with. I use cut up strips of the foam or similar type. And basically, I got fed up with the wasted time involved. Now, there was a transition from this to a version that had a little cup and a tube that allowed you to collect the vapour and pump the tube or put the tube in the entrance and let the vapour go in through the tube, which meant that the hot end of the thing wasn't inside the hive and didn't do damage to the hive. If one could imagine this hive not being wood but being polystyrene or similar plastic materials, which is often the case these days with particularly with new beekeepers, this would do no end of damage, right? So you couldn't use this method, in my opinion. You couldn't get it in the entrance, and B, if it did get in there, you have to be very, very careful to hold it steady and not touch any of the surfaces, otherwise the whole thing will start melting. So I started looking for an alternative to this, and that's when I came up with this. Basically, this is an insect fogger that they use in the States. After you've used it with oxalic acid, before you attempt to store it away between applications, you must, this is a H2O water in there, pump it with it on,
Yeah.
and get the water vapour through it, and then pump it as it cools down about 20 times to clear it out and get rid of the oxalic acid around the pump. Okay, so, and the method I use for this is basically you turn this machine on, turn the gas on,
Yeah.
light the actual gas burner, which is between the coils that run from the pump, put it down and leave it alone for about 2 minutes to heat up.
Yeah.
And this will glow quite red, quite a dark red when it's working properly. my one started playing up, and it recently has started to go out at the most inappropriate time. So I also carry with me a blow lamp to keep it hot while I go. But the object being that when this glows red, you go up to the front of your hives. You can put this either in the entrance or just a bit back from the entrance, pump and wait for the vapour to blow in. And it goes in at a fair rate of knots. At first I was frightened that I'd be doing the bees damage. It comes out at such a velocity. But believe you me, these insects are very, very hardy. And if they're clustered around inside the brood nest, the number of bees that you actually blow from one side of the hive to the other with this vapour is very few in comparison. So, and even they come out okay. The only thing I need to do before I start is I go around all my hives. This is why this is heating up.
Yeah.
I go around all my hives and I block the open mesh floor entrance at the back with some foam.
Yeah.
Either that, or I leave a gap in the middle because I'm going to put the fumes in there, and I just cover the front entrance up. Okay?
Yeah.
Either way, it's to minimise the amount of lost vapour during the treatment. Okay? So you leave it like that for the duration of treating all the other hives, and the last thing you do before you leave your apiary is go around and take all these off. And then you'll find, if you've done it correctly, there'll be a small beard of bees will come out the front, cleaning themselves and what have you. And pretty soon, if they're able to fly that particular day, they sort themselves out, go back, recluster, no other disturbance.
That's nice.
Now, to me, that is doubly good. It's good for my time, my comfort, and the bees minimising the stress that they go through. Yeah. And this time of the year, stress, like any time really for the bees, is the killer.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, I think we've covered the build-up to me actually using this and the rationale for me using it. Mm. It's not a formally accepted method of doing it, and there may be quite a few people that would object to this method. But I haven't heard any arguments that would convince me otherwise. This, to me, is the way to go. Mm. If you've got more than 5 or 6 hives, it's worth investing in one of these. This method uses alcohol, pure alcohol, to liquefy the oxalic acid crystals and then pump it through where it vaporises in the heat to force it out into the hive. Okay?
Yeah.
It's good to use more than one method of treating varroa and alternate those methods because we don't want the varroa to build up any sort of resistance or methodologies or changes to their life cycle that will make them survive. So by switching the different methods and using a good integrated pest management system, we can prevent that. Let's get on to actually mixing up the oxalic acid treatment that I use for this. Health and safety, always mark
Oh yeah.
Right, because if you look at that and compare it with your water, there isn't much difference. So you don't want to make mistakes. So I use the honey jars, old honey jars, to mix it up in, and this is how we go. So I use the measuring scale, and I'm going to now measure out 30 grams of oxalic acid. Next thing is to measure out the alcohol. I want 100 mils or millilitres of alcohol. 100 mils.
So is that particular alcohol, or is that a...
This is the only pure alcohol I could buy easily on the internet. In the States, they use what's known as grain alcohol, which is I'm not sure it's isotropic, but it doesn't matter whether it's the ethyl or the iso.
Right.
I've used both.
Yeah.
Before I found that, I used to use the rubbing alcohol.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Which, so long as you get the high percentage, is okay.
Yeah.
For the vaping, it is anyway.
Yeah.
So now, I'm going to pour the alcohol into my jar. Point that is worth noting here, when you warm this up to get it to dissolve, there is no real vapour that comes off. When it's clear, it's ready. The ideal scenario is after a cold snap, you have weather like today, actually quite humid but dry.
Yeah.
Little wind, if possible. And if you do this the early part of the day, it gives you the rest of the day for the bees to get out, fly, clean themselves and recluster, ready for the rest of the winter. One of the things I think also, another plus on this method, because the cluster breaks, it also gives them an opportunity to recluster in another part of the brood nest. Now, in recent years, there's been a number of occasions where hives that have been quite strong and well prepared for winter with good quantities of stores, starving through starvation. In other words, they've moved to the wrong part of the hive body, away from the available stores. So my view is that this breaking of the cluster can be quite useful at a certain point in the winter for them to reorganise and recluster in a more appropriate part of the brood nest. Now that has completely cleared. You see that?
Yeah.
And the next phase in the operation is to move to setting this thing going.
Yeah.
And preparing to vape outside. So we're going to start this thing off, let it warm up, resting on this. And the time it takes for it to heat up, we'll use to get our bee suits on. Not that I expect there to be too much activity, but just to be safe. Now, I'd like to think that that will keep going. We'll give it a chance to redeem itself.
So the flame goes round the edge of that coil, doesn't it?
Inside the coil is like a cage.
Yeah.
No, see that? It's gone off.
Ah.
And the gas goes into the cage just to make sure.
Yeah. So we leave that to warm up.
Leave that to warm up and we'll come back to it in a minute. We have a heated up fogger.
Yeah, it's going now, isn't it?
I'm hoping I can turn this off now and
it will continue.
It will continue on its own. Right, now then. This colony here is 2 commercial 6-frame brood.
Yeah.
And This is the one that was not doing so well over at my apiaries, so I brought it in here to build up and get through the winter, and it seems to have done okay. So I'm going to now, I'll do one test blow. Right, it should start very soon.
There we go.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I want to do that in the entrance. Three times.
Yeah.
This entrance here. Now this one, now I didn't actually block off the open mesh floor at the back, but I think we're okay.
Quite a bit of vapour, isn't there?
Yeah. Now this one I might have to give them 4 because it's got the 3 brood chambers. Right, now then. That's it.
We're done.
Turn it off.
Turn it off, let it cool down.
And if I'm not going to use it again today, I would take that off and I would put fresh water.
Yeah, pump it through.
Pump it through, vape it through at least 20 times.
Yeah.
And then take it off and put it back in its other container to protect it and let it dry. Okay?
Yeah.
But I'm going to use it because I'm going to go out to my apiaries and do the rest of my colonies.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, while we're letting that cool down, we can see what effects it's having on the front of the hives.
So these have just started coming out, haven't they, because of it?
Eventually these will come out. This one's quiet for some reason. And that,
I can hear bees in this one.
Yeah, they're,
Yeah, there we are. Here's one.
Remember, they were all clustered.
Yeah.
So this is usually the liveliest of the 3 anyway. But oh, there's one of the. They've just come out. Very quick.
Yeah, that was really quick, wasn't it? That's impressive.
Is it worth filming?
In about a week's time, you go back out and you take the inserts from under the mesh floor, and there'll be a smattering of varroa mites there. Those mites would have crawled out from the brood that was still capped onto the bees, become phoretic mites or hitching a ride. And if there's no brood to crawl into and start breeding from, they'll crawl underneath the bees' platelets, the bands of chitin that they have around their abdomen, crawl in up and under and onto the softer tissue that's flexible to enable the movement of the abdomen, and tuck in there, bite through and start feeding on the fat bodies within the lower abdomen. Yeah. They're the ones that we targeted with that method. They're on the adult bees and they are vulnerable. And if they're not playing ball, the bees do a lot of preening as a result of being covered in this very, very fine dust that is the vapour. It covers everything.
Yeah.
And
they preen themselves and they dislodge those that are particularly awkward characters and not giving up the ghost, you know. So it's worth, if you've got a little magnifying glass, studying the condition of the varroa mites on the insert, because often you'll find they've got dents and squidges on them, or they've lost legs or what have you, where the bees have pulled them and pinched them with their mandibles. It's important that one doesn't over or exceed the levels I've given. If you do the trickle treatment, it's usually between 3 and 3.5% acidity,
Right.
for the syrup, and you can buy proprietary brands already mixed up.
Right.
So if you don't want to do it yourself, you know. But for this, to get the same effect within the same safety region, it's 30 grams to 100 millilitres of alcohol, and that gives you the right
dose.
amount. The amount is handled by the bees. I let them have a free hand through the time they're foraging and storing surplus honey.
Yeah.
And the moment I get those supers off, that's when I give them the first of the real treatments for preparing for autumn.
And that's this method you use here?
Now,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
But I used to put ApiGuard on.
Yeah.
I might revert back to doing that this year or next.
Just
It's
to
good
change
to
it
keep
up.
changing what you do
Yeah.
to keep ahead of the development of the mites themselves.
It's very important.
So I hope that was useful,
Yeah.
and we'll encourage new beekeepers to look at their options and try them
Absolutely.
out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Mike. And we may see you again. Well, I'm sure we'll see you again. See you at the courses.
My
Thank you very
pleasure
much.
anyway.
Thank you.